All righty, fellas. We are back with some more free agency frenzy. Day one was pretty hectic. We had a lot to cover. We can kind of skim back over now that we've had 24 hours to kind of digest some of these deals. We also had a few more come in that we'll talk about. But a lot of kind of moving parts in free agency. I would say, the new league year doesn't open until tomorrow at noon Eastern or whatever, or 4 p.m. Eastern, whatever the timeline is. And I feel like the majority of the dominoes have fallen. I mean, we still have Aaron Rodgers out there. There's still Russell Wilson out there at the quarterback position. You still have Stephon Diggs out there, Evan Ingram out there. There's guys that could be fantasy relevant for sure. But I think the vast majority of the big name trades and free agents have kind of been addressed. Darnold's off the market. Fields is off the market. Daniel Jones, we'll talk about in a second. DK Metcalf's been traded. We saw Lamry Tunsil get traded, which we didn't know was available. There's been a lot of moves in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, and I think in terms of fantasy, I mean, we'll talk about all of them as a whole, but the one that makes sense when you think about it, but more so is I kind of wish a rookie went here, was the LA Chargers signing Najee Harris. Again, only a 1-year term, $9.5 billion. But what that signifies to me is that even if it's just to play the Gus Edwards role, $9.5 million to begin with, I think he's going to get an opportunity at the starting job, or at the very minimum, it opens up the Chargers to not having to pigeonhole an early rookie running back. I also think Najee's is a really good fit for what Greg Roman's trying to do, because he was kind of, in that zone game style offense that the Steelers were running. I think he's more of a gap runner. And now you pair him with Greg Roman. I don't know, man. I think Najee Harris, in that spot specifically, where are you going to rank him in terms of redraft / best ball?
I think he's going to probably end up being a dead zone running back. Let's assume, we don't know this for sure, but let's assume this takes them out of the first 3 rounds of the running back.
They get a pass catcher on day 3, an RJ Harvey, maybe that's what they're trying to transition him into.
Yeah, I'm now 25 running backs deep into this class for our second edition of our draft guide, which, quick announcement, will be live April 1st instead of March 15th. The reason we're pushing it back, a couple things. Number one, we want to get through all of the players, and we were a little behind because I was, traveling and a bunch of other things. And also, all the pro days will be done by that point in time. So we'll have all the athletic measurables, because Igbuka didn't test, Travis Hunter didn't test, Ted McMillan didn't test. There's a lot of guys that we don't want to just throw another random edition of the draft guide out in mid-April just to catch up on that stuff. So we'll figure April 1st, final launch before the draft. But anyways, I'm 25 running backs through this class, and Woody Marks, LaQuint Allen, all these deeper names, Donovan Edwards. There's a lot of capable pass catching backs on day 3, probably 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round players. And if the Chargers want to work in a guy like that to go along with Najee Harris, that would make sense. The thing that I would be really excited for, because we've been kind of going back and forth on these 2 players. Yeah, I would love to see either a developmental guy that's like Najee go behind him on the depth chart. So Ollie Gordon. Yeah. Raheem Sanders, somebody who's a big back who can catch the ball like Najee Harris and kind of develop behind a veteran like that, or a true complement to Najee like Dylan Sampson or Tootin, or somebody who's smaller who can be the lightning to the thunder kind of situation like Warren and Najee were in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I think that would make a lot of sense. Now, for what it's worth, I was actually just looking at Najee's season as a whole, and I feel like he did get a little bit more hate than maybe people should have given him. Because again, is he going to be the explosive back that consistently rips off 15, 20 plus chunk runs? No, that's not necessarily. But at the same time, again, is it maybe the most lenient to his fantasy upside? Not necessarily, but the guy's going to touch the ball. He's going to get 15 to 20 carries a game, and he's probably going to have goal line equity on what should be a much improved offense with the Chargers, especially considering the fact that they should get their offensive line fully healthy.
Yeah, there's a couple guys in this free agent pool. Dobbins hasn't signed yet too. He's going to be an interesting.
I wonder where he goes.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting because he obviously would have been the best case scenario. I think for Dobbins would have been to sign a 3-year deal with the Chargers and stay where he was with Greg Roman and an offense that clearly favored him, and he finishes RB18 in PPR points per game. Let me ask you some Najee Harris ors in Dynasty right now, just because first of all, it's impossible to rank Dynasty running backs outside of the first 10 guys, because you could really make the case any which way. Now that Aaron Jones is in Minnesota, you could convince me he's running back 17 in Dynasty right now, just because he's going to get volume and could be maybe an RB1, RB2 type of projection. But then again, you go all the way down to the mid 30s. It's okay, well, where do I put Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift and Ramondre Stevenson, Isaiah Pacheco, these guys that are kind of shaky starters right now? So let me ask you this. Would you rather have Najee Harris in Dynasty, or would you rather have his former teammate Jaylen Warren?
So the reason why I have Najee higher is because I think more than likely we'll see the Steelers add a running back to carry the majority of the carries. I think it's going to be a similar dynamic, except they're going to insert somebody into that Najee role. I like Jaylen Warren. Again, in fact, coming into this year, like the efficiency, the receiving profile, like he's the type of back that I want to be targeting. Unfortunately, I feel like at this point in his career, the Steelers have kind of indicated how they want to use him. That's where I'm at with him.
I don't disagree.
I would take Najee.
You. This is this is a really large tier for me. So just give me yes, no's on these guys.
Yep.
Isaiah Pacheco or Najee Harris?
Najee.
Ramondre Stevenson or Najee Harris?
Najee.
Tank Bigsby or Najee Harris?
Najee.
Tajay Spears or Najee Harris?
Najee.
Travis Etienne or Najee Harris?
Najee.
Aaron Jones or Najee Harris?
I have Najee one spot higher.
Okay.
He's younger.
James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Brian Robinson, or Najee Harris?
He's one spot behind Alvin Kamara. I'll tell you exactly where he ended up. I have him at 20 right now at running back.
So you have him quite a bit higher than I do.
Without including the rookies, though, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm not including the rookies right now either in the flock rankings. Of course, we'll update the trade value chart once the dust settles, and most of these guys, probably next week or the week after or something, we'll have a trade value chart update. Here's my thing with Harris, the position in the draft still. You mentioned it was a $9.25 million deal. It's only $5 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
And it's up to 9.5 or 25 million on the deal. So it's giving like bridge running back money, not like, oh, this is our full on bell cow money. So for me, I'm like,
I don't
think
disagree.
I think there's more team investment, frankly, behind Ramondre Stevenson than Najee Harris, given the contract that Ramondre Stevenson has, for example.
I think it's a non-zero. I think it's more likely at this point, because of what we've seen this offseason from the Patriots versus the Chargers. The Patriots just want to surround Drake May with young, usable offensive pieces. So I think it's far more likely they draft and nuke Ramondre in that second round than it is for the Chargers at this point. I really do.
I don't disagree with you. It's not like I think Ramondre's safe or anything. Like he's definitely one of the bigger, like riskier holds right now. I just think he's like slightly less risky than Najee Harris. But again, the Chargers made it a point to go out and get this guy in the first day of free agency. It's possible that he's going to be a 200 plus carry type of dude this year. I'm not discounting that. I don't know how to rank any of these guys realistically. Like I actually don't. Like I have like Travis, like what do you do with Travis Etienne right now? What do you do with Tajay Spears right now? Tank Bigsby right now? Like Isaiah Pacheco
this
right
another
now. They're
factor?
all just like, okay, some of the one or two of these guys will work. I just have no fucking idea which ones.
This is the other factor. The reason why I do prefer Najee over those guys is we already know the team investment with them. With Travis Etienne, we're saying, okay, well, he could play the Bucky Irving role with that Liam Cohen offense. But we also don't know. We saw Liam Cohen get rid of Christian Kirk, get rid of Evan Ingram, shape that offense around his image. Who's to say he doesn't look at Travis Etienne and say, you know what, I want to go in the draft and get a better version of you at this point?
Yeah, dude.
That's what I'm worried about.
I don't know what to do with any of these guys, realistically. Like if I had Etienne, Spears and Bigsby are interesting just because they're like kind of the second guy on their depth chart right now. And I think they're ascending players still and that kind of thing. But like these guys that were like previously productive running backs, like Etienne, Stevenson, Pacheco, like we're talking borderline RB, like they've had RB1 seasons, some of those guys. So I don't know what to do with them right now because I feel like the team investment in those players is not high to the point that I'm like, okay, I'd definitely be shopping them just given the strength of the running back class. But like, are they full on sells for whatever you can get for them kind of players? Or is it possible that the only thing that the Chiefs add to their backfield is they signed Elijah Mitchell yesterday, they draft Woody Marks in the 6th round or something like that, and that's it? And it's Isaiah Pacheco's backfield, and we're throwing them right back into the top 15 dynasty running backs.
We could be, but like I would say so. I have Mixon, Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, 17-19, specifically because I feel good about their situation.
Oh, I have those guys way ahead of the names I'm talking about right now.
No, I know. I'm just saying that's my 17-19. Najee would begin the 20 because, like him and Aaron Jones, I feel the best about their comparable workouts. And the reason why they would go slightly above Brian Robinson and Ramondre Stevenson for me, because I don't think it's a 0% chance of Washington taking Trevion Henderson at 29 or the New England Patriots taking Quinshon Judkins at 34.
Yeah, like it's so hard to rank guys like Kamara, Connor, Jones, who we feel pretty confident should be like starting running backs this year. And because they were, 2017 running back class guys, they just seem to be unkillable and they just have good year after good year. And it doesn't really matter age wise. I'm sure some of them will fall off a cliff this year. It's like more than likely that's going to happen, but I don't know. It's so hard to rank those guys in tandem with the guys that we just mentioned, the Stevensons, the Pachecos, the B-Robs, the Najees, the guys who maybe have workloads that are projectable right now, but we don't know how that's going to maintain itself throughout the NFL draft process. And then you also have to mix in these like Zach Charbonnet, Trey Benson, Tajay Spears type of guys.
Yeah, like
where
Rico Dowdle, Rashad White.
Yeah, like they don't really have projectable workloads, at least right now, but they're like good, young, talented players that could take over their backfield. Like I have Tajay Spears ranked over Tony Pollard, for example, even though Tony Pollard is technically like the starting running back there.
Yeah, I mean, like I literally have, so in my RB tier 9, it starts at Pacheco, and honestly, I think ETN's probably a part of this year, so I'm going to drop him. Like even like 27 to 36 at this point for me, because honestly, I don't feel good about any of them getting consistent workloads.
Yeah, I have him 25 to 32, starting with ETN, bookending with 35 is where I have it. 25 to 35 is Tony Pollard's my 35 and ETN's my 25. And that should kind of indicate the types of players we're talking about here, which is like previously decent running backs in fantasy. No idea if the team thinks they're going to be the starter going forward.
Yeah, and like right ahead of the next tier of like similar, but like I feel even less good about their projections with like Algier, obviously, he's working behind Bijan. Jalen Wright working behind Achane. Javonte Williams, sure, he signed a deal with the Cowboys. They're drafting a running back in the first 3 rounds. Don't get it twisted. Jonathan Brooks, what do I do with him? He's at RB 40 right now. He's probably going to miss the entirety of 25. I like the talent, but is he even going to look like that talent coming off of his second ACL? Who's to say? Austin Eckler, older running back. Is he even going to be back? Who knows? Nick Chubb, is he even at this point? Do you feel good about Nick Chubb working into a 10 touch per game workload somewhere? Because I think the NFL is scared of him.
I think the NFL is scared of him too medically, but
Braylon Allen.
I tend to think, there's guys like similar names that I have ranked in that area too, because there's other dudes that kind of have workloads right now, like Audric Estime or Jerome Ford or whatever. But like we kind of just it's a foregone.
I didn't even rank them there because I know
I have them ranked at like 47 and 48 because I'm like I got to put some respect on them just because they could be starting running backs if by some miracle they like Zamir White it and avoid all the good running backs in the class like last year with Zamir White, where you like kind of have to respect it a little bit, their projectable workload. But yeah, the dynasty running back landscape is this. Here's the simple answer. Anybody who's worth anything, just sell them for like second round rookie picks and re-roll into rookies in this class because it's just too good of a class to think that, 15 of these dudes are going to dodge a bullet. It's like there's going to be one guy or two guys that dodge a bullet. Just by sheer numbers, it's like maybe Pacheco's only competition added is Elijah Mitchell and Woody Marks in the 6th round or something. But the other 10 running backs, just like Pacheco, will get nuked or have significant competition added.
Yeah, and honestly, like, literally, we could call the RB tier 9, literally that range that we were just talking about, the dynasty running back dead zone. Because if you draft any of those guys where their ADP is, they're going to get nuked in the draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, for the most part. Or at the very least, you're adding 3rd or 4th round competition that could be just as good, if not better, than them from day one of training camp or whatever. So that was a lot on Najee and the running back landscape. You also mentioned Javonte Williams, who, since we last did our live stream, signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Dallas Cowboys. Again, nice little placeholder, probably a 3rd down role in store for him, probably at the very least. You and I both believe they're going to probably invest significant capital into the running back position in the draft.
Like, I think, don't get me wrong, like, obviously, Javonte as a feature back, as we saw in Denver, not going to happen at this point in his career. But what he does, at least for a team that we know with Dallas, with Dak Prescott, wants to throw the football, he can block and he can run routes on 3rd down. And even if it's just a glorified Samaje Perine role, he's making $3.5 million for a year. Like, it's not like they paid him like Najee up to $9.5 million where you can make the case, oh, maybe if they don't add a significant running back, they're going to give him the workload. Like, no, like I think at this point, given the money that they gave him, it's pretty clear he's going to be playing a 3rd down type of role, maybe even similar to the one we saw in with Zeke.
Yeah, and I don't buy into too much of like, oh, they didn't pay him that much, so they won't care to use him or whatever. Because like J.K. Dobbins last year made nothing from the Chargers and was a top 20 running back in fantasy. So
if he turned into J.K. Dobbins, I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just sign J.K. Dobbins unless his market is more robust than Javonte's and he would command a lot more money or whatever. But yeah, Javonte at the very least, he's like a good, like Jason Light of the Bucks does this all the time, where you sign somebody so you don't have to draft a running back in the first 3 rounds. If you are completely screwed, you have something. A guy that can carry a workload who's been semi-decent in the NFL in spurts. Again, Javonte, unfortunately, his explosive burst is just kind of gone from North Carolina from those knee injuries. But we'll have to see what happens here with Javonte Williams. Again, I think he's an interesting handcuff option to whoever the starter will be in Dallas, which is presumably in the draft.
Yeah, 100% an insurance signing. I'm seeing Brock saying that in the chat.
Speaking of running backs and Jason Light, real quick, I just need to quickly address that the Pirine contract that fucking you didn't mention, Danny, by the way, that it was Dov Kleinman fucking reporting.
No, it was Aaron Wilson.
Was it Aaron Wilson? Okay, well, either way, if you guys didn't see this, Dov and Aaron Wilson are like, Samaje Perine. What was the deal? Like 3 years, 26 million?
22.5.
Yeah, like just a ridiculous amount of money for like a 30-year-old running back that nobody thinks is good. And then Jason Light, the GM of the Buccaneers,
we did not.
He's like, we did not sign him, like not even remotely. And the reason I believed it is because Bruce Arians loves Samaje Perine, and like Todd Bowles likes Samaje Perine. I'm like, it kind of does make sense that they would sign Samaje Perine, but inevitably he went back to the Bengals, which me and you went back and forth over text. We're like, that's kind of good news for Chase Brown, to be honest, because we don't know what Zach Moss's future is. We talked about that on the running back, what teams need running backs video. But them bringing back Samaje Perine kind of bodes well that they're like, Chase Brown's going to be our starter, and Samaje is just going to spell him in like long down and distance and third and long kind of thing. Because that would be great for Chase Brown. I mean, I doubt they want to give him like 80% of the work or whatever they gave him last year. Down the stretch, he was just like a dominant workhorse. But him being a 60 to 70% starter, we'll take that. If you're a Chase Brown manager, you'll still take that as a top 12 to 15 dynasty running back right now, because the thing we're worried about, if we're Chase Brown bag holders, which you and I are definitely qualified to be Chase Brown bag holders because we have 1 million shares of them.
Yeah.
What we don't want is them to be like, oh, the best player on our board in the second round was Quinshon Judkins, so we drafted him. Yeah,
no, 100%. By the way, this was the tweet from Aaron Wilson that I believe he took down. I mean, I hope he took down, but that just completely fabricated, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know where he heard that. I hope it would be funny if like some of these agents or whatever were just telling fake stories. They were like, Samaje Perine got this deal just to fuck with the reporters.
Just to test their ball knowledge on like, he wouldn't even double check to make sure like Samaje Perine getting 7.5 per, like that doesn't make sense to you.
No, there's no way, dude. If we fucking paid Samaje Perine that much money to be essentially a glorified offensive lineman,
12.5 million guaranteed was the reported guarantee.
That's insane. That would have been insane. It didn't totally shock me when I heard it, because I know they like Perine, and I know they're kind of dumb, and they like with running backs specifically. Like it's a miracle we have Bucky Irving now, because if you remember running backs in Tampa Bay. Like I can go over the guys that
Peyton Barber, baby.
Peyton Barber, Rojo, Fournette. Like we've not been great at selecting running back talent, free agency or the draft. So them paying that much money to Chase Edmonds like they did 2 years ago, or Samaje like it was reported, I wasn't totally shocked by that. But thankfully, Bucky and White should be the dudes this year. This is the one that I want to talk about, because this is the most interesting dynasty thing for me. Daniel Jones getting 1 year's $14 million or up to $14 million with the Indianapolis Colts. It's already been reported. Tom Pelissero came out and said this already, that this is very much we want to put this open competition with Anthony Richardson.
Sorry, I don't tell me the name. I'm trying to think of the name. Don't tell me the name. I will figure it out. It was
I know who it is.
2020 draft. Fucking what was his fucking name? I remember he was a hard-nosed runner, and he went in the third round, and people were like, "Oh, maybe he's gonna be something." What's the first letter of the name?
K.
Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, Keyshawn Vaughn.
Keyshawn fucking Vaughn.
Yeah, but anyways, the Daniel Jones situation. You guys probably know at this point that I'm not super high on Anthony Richardson. I don't think you are. Are you higher than me on Anthony Richardson, or are you kind of right with me on him?
Like, if you can, I mean, where would you sell him at this point? Like, what would you need to be offered in terms of capital?
I would take a second rounder as long as it's before like 207.
I'd probably be closer to early 2, just because, like, at that point, like, with the handcuff running back versus the handcuff quarterback, like, I don't know, man. Like,
he stinks.
What would you pay for Justin Fields? And then Anthony Richardson would be a little under that.
I would pay. I think, given the contract that Justin Fields signed, I actually think he's like pretty far ahead of Richardson now in terms of market value. Like I would actually pay, like, legitimately, I would pay like the 112 for Justin
I don't
Fields.
think that's outrageous.
I
In
think
this
that's
quarterback class?
probably fair, given that you're not going to get a quarterback at that pick in this class, especially not
Where's
one more
Shedeur gonna
valuable.
go?
Like, maybe you're like, okay, that's a little rich because, whatever wide receiver or running back you're getting there maybe is like a round and a half higher in a startup than Justin Fields or whatever. So maybe it's more like an early second or whatever. But I don't know, dude. The Jets, Justin Fields reunites with Garrett Wilson. Like, the whole Jets vibe was really bad with the Aaron Rodgers experiment. And I know Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson burned a lot of us, and nobody more than me. Like, you guys know, I was all in on Breece. He was my highest rostered first round player on Underdog. Garrett Wilson, infamously, I drafted him over some guy who might go down as one of the best receivers of all time in the Flock League. So it's copium for me to just be like, oh, I'm in on the Jets again. It's like, I'm not in on the Jets. I'm going to be very cautiously optimistic about the Jets, to be perfectly clear here. But I actually kind of like it for Justin Fields, specifically.
For Justin Fields.
His own value in Dynasty.
For Justin Fields, yes. I've seen
Wilson it's gonna hurt him, and Breece, he's a high target running back. It'll probably affect his target share, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I know people are ready to punt Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall into the fucking moon, and I'm not ready to do that. Yes, Malcolm Kuntz back to the Raiders. We did see that as well.
I mean, really quickly off topic, I'll just say this because I saw it on my feed. With the Mikko Rantanen trade, the only 4 teams apparently he would have signed an extension were the Panthers, Stars, Golden Knights, and Leafs.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were supposed to give up Marner for him, so there was no way I was going to do that.
Well, you guys are apparently going to lose Marner this offseason.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I'll believe it when I see it.
Are you going to sign him 8 years, $13 million per?
Probably. I don't know. Anyways, we can pivot back to football here.
I had to mention it.
Let's talk about this group of wide receiver signings and anything that interests you. We got, 3 years, 36 for Josh Palmer to the Bills.
Semi-interesting in best ball.
Yeah, same contract exactly, I believe, for Darius Slayton back to New York with the Giants.
A little less interesting because we've seen him with the Giants.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell the Giants are doing, man. And then you got De'Ami Brown going to, was it Jacksonville that he signed with?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously you would think, I mean, they haven't done anything with Gabe Davis, but like De'Ami Brown would play the Gabe Davis role, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's
1 year, stretcher, outside wide receiver.
I think he's going to play like third most wide receiver snaps, at least early on. Like, if they address the wide receiver position in the draft.
They need a layup guy.
Yeah, like he'll probably bump down the depth chart, him and Davis both. If they were to, trade down from 5 or whatever and draft Ted McMillan or something like that, that would obviously change the dynamic of their wide receiver core. But if it is going to be, they're going to run the ball through ETN and Bigsby, and BTJ is going to be like 170 target dude or something. And De'Ami Brown and Gabe Davis are kind of just like best ball, let's see what they can do downfield kind of guys. It makes some sense to me. Cooper Kupp also could sign with the Jags. It's very possible. So,
yeah. DJ Moore was a top 15 wide receiver, but it also took insane efficiency for him to get there.
Yeah, I am.
It's not
very much okay with like where DJ Moore was going, in redraft with Justin Fields is where Garrett Wilson should go in redraft
late third.
with Justin Fields in the third round.
Yeah,
I'm going to be in at that price. Like I
at that point,
I tend to think that Garrett Wilson was capable. Like, I know this is total copium on my part. He was capable of an all-pro season this year. He totally was. I don't think we were over our skis thinking he was capable of doing that. The vibes were so terrible with Aaron Rodgers. Like, you guys have probably all experienced this. Have you ever had a superior at work just be a total dick to you all the time? And you just don't want to like work hard for them? Like, it kind of gives me that
quit jobs
vibe
before because of that. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally like up and left.
Yeah.
Before.
It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me to just think that Garrett Wilson's no longer capable of being a star receiver. I think everyone in the NFL would agree that if the Jets did trade Garrett Wilson, he should cost like a first round pick on a trade, at least a late first round pick, if not even maybe a first and a third or something like that. So for me, I don't really get the whole Garrett Wilson's dead now because Justin Fields can't throw the ball. It's like, I mean, Justin Fields has gotten a little bit better throwing the football, and Rodgers was nothing special either. And Garrett Wilson was good with Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, as was Breece Hall. So I feel pretty good that if the vibes are good, coaching staff seems like they're actual adults, unlike the previous coaching staff. Like the scheme is decent. Like Justin Fields doesn't really fit like the Jared Goff mold, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they can teach him how to be a little bit more of like an in-structure guy, because Fields literally, like nobody in the NFL chucks it deep more than Justin Fields. Like I saw Ryan Heath and Josh Norris pulling numbers of like deep receiving yards per game of George Pickens when Justin Fields was the starter, of DJ Moore in 2023 or whatever when Justin Fields was the starter. So I think with Fields, at the very least, he's going to probably stretch the defense out, and that's good for Breece Hall to be able to find some running lanes, and it's good for Garrett Wilson to be able to get some deep targets too. Because most of Garrett Wilson, if you guys had Garrett Wilson in fantasy last year, you know he just was like a PPR scam for the most part. It was just, 3-yard check down to Garrett Wilson, can't do anything after the catch because he's got 3 guys around him because Alan Lazard isn't blocking and the offensive line didn't even know the play or something. Like it was just such a tire fire organization last year that nothing worked.
Sorry, I have to address this. What free agency holes did we fill? It's a joke, by the way. We signed a few backups is what we did. We signed a backup running back, a backup D-tackle. But I think Thomas is like a backup DT3 edge depth. He could fill that role.
Rotational guy for you guys.
That's fine. And it's like $4 million per, but it's like, I don't think the Cowboys understand the concept that if you're going to restructure contracts to create cap space, if you don't spend it, you just end up paying more in the future.
And like, here's the easy thing.
That's what I don't
Stupid teams are the teams that spend $20 million on Carlton Davis, for example. Like, I don't know why the hell the Patriots are doing some shit like that. I get they have to spend their money. Totally fine. But like, one thing that the Cowboys have that the Patriots don't have is in-house superstars who need to be extended. That's what you should spend your cap on. Just give Micah what he wants.
Dude, like you can restructure and extend Micah's contract to the point where you can even clear cap to use this year and build yourself into a contending team. Again, are you going to get superstars on the market? No, but you can stopgap a lot of the fucking needs that you fill. Maybe you get another one tech to compete with Mozzie in the middle. Now you need a starting corner. Guess what? Jordan Lewis is making 3 years, $30 million now, signed with the Jaguars. You're going to need a nickel corner. Are you going to potentially move on from Trayvon Diggs? Who knows what's going on in that instance? Is he going to be fully recovered from that knee injury? You need an outside corner and a nickel corner. You probably need a linebacker because DeMarvin Overshown's probably not going to be available in week 1 this year. And I mean, that's not even talking about the fact that you probably need 2 wide receivers in the NFL draft and a running back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why not, restructure, free up some of that space, sign Stephon Diggs to a 1-year, $10 million deal, bring back Amari Cooper for 1 year, $8 million or something like that. There's moves that can be made that are like budget friendly too, like that some teams don't seem to take advantage of, but we'll see more of those trickle in as we get through it. Let's circle back to Palmer for a second, because the money's not insignificant, dude. 3 years, $36 million. Like, that's not insignificant money. My thought is like, he's going to be just like the third receiver, most likely. Like, they're hoping that Coleman can be their
I think it tells me a lot.
See, Shakir is their like PPR guy. And like, what does it say about Coleman?
I think this opens him up more to big slot usage because Palmer can exist on the outside.
But Shakir can't.
Fair. I can't really tell you what their plan is with Coleman. I think
they want to play him at X, man. I think that's what they want to do. Not that he should, but that's, I think, what they're thinking.
Maybe, yeah. It's just weird.
Coleman's
Turpin got paid, yes. Turpin got paid 3 years, $18 million. He's going to be a kick returner. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 4 on offense is about the role that I'd expect from him. People are going to say, well, he signed a new extension. Maybe he's going to be the wide receiver 2, 3 there. $6 million per year, 3-year deal. He's one of the best returners in the league. That's about the going rate for a good returner.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Palmer's an interesting one. I'd be curious to see where his like ADP, lines up, because like people pretend, Josh Palmer
similar to last year, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, people were like, Josh Palmer, what a bum. Why would the Bills sign him? It's like, dude, we were drafting this guy on Underdog in like the 9th round last year on the Chargers. Like, people were excited about Josh Palmer, legitimately.
Yeah, best case, he's new Gabe Davis, which isn't great. I mean, I would argue that if you're getting new Gabe Davis in the 9th round, I mean, Gabe Davis was a 4th round pick in best ball at one point.
Yeah,
so like,
that's not really his role, though. Like,
he's a vertical wide receiver.
He's like a better Mac Hollins for their offense.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're thinking, really. Honestly, I think if I were Buffalo, I would have been much more in on trading for Metcalf and getting a real difference-making wide receiver 1 than throwing some money at Josh Palmer. Like, to me, that doesn't solve anything. I get Josh Allen can, he's that good. He'll raise anybody's talent level. But like, he was playing with Justin Herbert before this. It's not like he had a shit quarterback. So
Palmer's a fine player.
He's a fine player. I think the Bills think that their wide receiver core is like fixed now.
Yeah. I mean, you're assuming that your top 3 starters are going to be Palmer, Shakir, and obviously Keon Coleman. So like they're not going to draft one, right? No,
they're not going to. And like, let's say they pay James Cook this offseason or whatever. It's like you have a B- cast around an A+ quarterback. And if you just had one A+ level playmaker to go along with it, like that would be great. And maybe I'm just an idiot and they didn't have their number 1 wide receiver last year and he won MVP the first year without Stephon Diggs. So maybe I'm just stupid and it doesn't matter who he's throwing to. But I don't know, man. I feel like
Do you think this could indicate they expect more from Kincaid this year because he was pretty banged up this past year?
I think you're not going to like this. I think this just indicates that Shakir is going to end up being undervalued in every format.
All right.
I think we're talking about like PPR 14 point per game, wide receiver 26 in points per game floor, honestly. Nice. Like he's just going to be that for the Bills.
One condom's fine. You don't have to grab 3.
Dude, here's why I like guys like Khalil Shakir. Because you and I play in leagues with 3 wide receivers and 3 flexes.
He's fine.
And full PPR. He's going to be an every week flex for leagues like that.
Not for a winning team.
Yeah, for a winning team.
For a championship team.
Yes, absolutely, dude.
You think the championship team is going to have Shakir as their wide receiver 3 and majority?
No, I said 3 wide receiver, 3 flex, meaning he's top 6 weapon for you in that situation.
Sure, maybe he has utility to start 11, start 12. I start 9, he's useless.
He was a good, okay. Really shallow leagues, whatever. It's Khalil Shakir, but I honestly think he's an undervalued guy in formats that you and I play in.
Hey, like he's fine. Sure, like I don't know. There's
Given
lot
the cost, I'll take the production, man. I feel like you're underrating the cost that you have to pay for a guy like Khalil Shakir on the open market. And what the actual hit rate of players like that is relative to what you're going to get from Shakir.
Now, what's the cost you're referencing? Because I think there's higher value options that I'd rather take in the second round of drafts.
In the second, in like 207, 208, I'm talking about.
Khalil Shakir, Alakai Oman are the asset.
It would depend what I'm shooting for, but Alakai Omanor is the caliber of prospect based on his prospect grade, wide receiver 3 upside type of dude that hits a top 24 season about 30% of the time. And I feel confident in projecting Shakir for that this year.
You projecting him as a top 24 wide receiver in your rankings this year?
Based on the current state of the Buffalo Bills offense, he will be my highest rated Bills wide receiver. And he has very much the capability to be like a 14 point per game guy, which will be borderline top 24 production.
It's faded. Top 30.
I don't know.
Sure. Man. Top 24. Too much.
I think he's a solid player, man. He was borderline top 24 this year. What's to say? He's still a young dude. He's still getting better.
He's fine. I don't know. I don't think he's special.
I never said he was special. I said he can produce.
Sure, but I just think like in the second round of your rookie drafts, I would rather shoot for upside. Like, sure, if your philosophy is safe floor guys, sure, you're gonna love a Khalil Shakir. But to me, I don't know. Like, on a real team in a dynasty league, if he's anything more than your wide receiver 6, are you feeling good?
Well, let me ask you this. Alakai Omanor was the name that you gave an example of. Yeah. If Alakai Omanor had 14 points per game next year, how much more, like how big of a hit is that? That's a huge hit, a massive hit. And that's what Shakir is going to do.
Sure. But what's the market value upside for Khalil Shakir versus Alakai Omanor doing that? I mean, Shakir is a top 40 dynasty receiver on the market right now. And Alakai Omanor would probably be, if he had a 14 point per game season, he'd probably be a top 20 to 24 dynasty wide receiver. Yeah.
So like, again,
why would I trade the asset of A.O. Manor knowing
that's not a 50-50 shot though. It's like a 10-15% chance based on the caliber of prospect that he is that actually happens.
We'll see. I mean, I just shoot for more upside with my assets. That's why I get
that, but sometimes it's like guys who are not upside plays get undervalued. I get shooting for upside.
Couple threes, sure. You want to shoot a couple threes, sure, but any second round caliber draft capital, I'm not.
I would do it all day.
Go for it.
We have had Khalil Shakir discussions like 600 times now. Are you interested at all in Darius Slayton? Does it matter that he got this contract? I don't think it changes anything.
Cool. He's a decent value in the 14th round of best ball.
Ryland's coming at you, coming for the throat.
Yeah. Did I ever say that Jalen Tolbert was worth a rookie too? I thought he was I said he was a fine pick in best ball in the 17th, 18th round.
Yeah, fair enough.
And to be fair, if you picked him in the 17th, 18th round, you returned on value.
You
had a couple usable weeks.
He had a couple usable weeks. The moment that everybody has all been waiting for here is how excited I am for Zach Wilson going to the Dolphins, realistically. Because
yeah. I feel for Nick, bro. The years of him crushing on Zach Wilson, now he has to support him.
Bro,
they gave him like a decent amount of money too. It was like up to 10 million.
$6 million, and the quarterback behind him would be the betting favorite to miss at least 5 games if there were odds on that. Dude, I'm not going to go crazy and be like, oh, this is the next Sam Darnold here. Like,
you want to, though. I know you want to.
All I'm saying is if you have Zach Wilson shares that were dead, very much dead, completely cooked, fried, like pan-seared, cooked. Zach Wilson's got a tiny little bit of life left in his career now.
Are you rostering him in any Dynasty leagues?
Absolutely. Dude, I drafted him too much. So I have him on 4 or 5 teams, unfortunately, for me. But if he starts games next year, which Tua has major injury issues, if he has another concussion, he might be shut down for the entire year next season. Zach Wilson, what did we say about him coming out of school? What was the perfect fit for his skill set? It was a Shanahan offense. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but here's the other thing. His biggest issue in New York was hitting the layups. He is sat behind Bo Nix, who was extremely accurate last year, and he's going to sit behind Tua Tagovailoa, who's extremely accurate this year. He has weapons. He has good coaching. He's interesting. He's interesting. As like quarterback 37 in Dynasty or something, wherever he would rank, that's interesting to me. If you're in the 22nd round of a startup, grab a shot on Zach Wilson. To me, I think it's a reasonable swing to take because I'm going to do a video on this, Danny. I was going to mention this to you. I want to go over like how much turnover the quarterback 20 to 32 has every year in dynasty value. Because just think about it logically, like a quarter of the league or a third of the league every year is unhappy with their quarterback situation. And if there's going to be turnover all the time like this, and we don't have like an obscenely good quarterback class next year or whatever, who knows, man? Like 2 or 3 guys could come out of the woodworks. Maybe Malik Willis is a starting quarterback in 2026. Like you never know. Like it's possible.
I would much rather Malik Willis than Zach Wilson.
I would not. I think Zach Wilson is more talented than Malik Willis is personally.
Dude, Malik Willis was like a quarterback 2 in fantasy when he started games last year.
Oh, from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
I was an NFL franchise.
Oh, okay.
Zach Wilson. Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, Willis would be kind of interesting because he runs the ball. But NFL franchise perspective, again, I'm not saying that Zach Wilson's like some huge buy right now, but
you mentioned he was interesting. He's as interesting as diabetes, man. Like fuck.
If the door was shut, locked, bulletproof glass, there's now a key 10 feet away from you that you could maybe reach if you could stretch yourself far enough.
Just make sure you supplement yourself with some insulin.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad for Zach Wilson. But if I'm in round 22 of a startup, I will take shots or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to trade anything for. I'm not going to. But I have shares and they're not dead. That's my only point.
I can't hate on you for that because I still remember a couple years ago when we did the no flocking startup. Mason brought me on to talk about like some value picks in the draft, and I was hyping up Sam Darnold when he was on the 49ers.
I drafted Sam Darnold in 2 startups last year, 2,
yeah.
And I lucked it. Now he's a top 24 quarterback. I'm not saying Zach Wilson's the next Sam Darnold, but here's what could happen. Here's actually what's more likely to happen. Tua misses 6 or 8, 10 games next year because he's Tua, and Zach Wilson plays well, and another team signs him to Justin Fields' contract with the Jets. 2 years, $40 million to the Steelers or something.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah. What if Zach Wilson plays well for 6 to 8 games for the Dolphins this year, and in free agency next year, you and I are looking at the quarterback class, not thinking it's going to be something special or whatever. There's going to be 5 to 7 teams every year looking for a quarterback solution. If Zach Wilson played well in Tua Tagovailoa's absence in a great offense with great weapons, great coaching, who's to say somebody doesn't give him a half decent contract? He was a former top 3 pick. And if he shows a lot of signs of improvement, then people might be interested in that.
I mean,
I agree with Jared. These former pedigree quarterbacks are good lottery tickets to have on your roster.
I mean, for every Sam Darnold, there's a Jameis Winston, right?
Jameis Winston has been decent when he's gotten opportunities. I think anybody who rosters Jameis Winston as their like fifth quarterback in a Superflex league is kind of happy that they have him on their roster.
Yeah. But like, try trading him. I tried. Couldn't even get a 3.
No, I'm not saying he's going to be valuable, but Zach Wilson's also really young, unlike Jameis Winston.
I mean, a couple years ago, Jameis
Winston. It's total hopium. Like, I realize that. I'm just saying he costs you absolutely nothing right now in a startup draft. And if you have shares of him, you're like, okay, maybe they're functional now.
Hey, I mean, if Zach Wilson had a year where he threw 28 touchdowns in the team that drafted him, we'd be having a different combo.
Oh, you're saying that he never was as good as Baker was in Cleveland?
Correct.
Yeah, that's fair. Dude, you want to say Zach Wilson's a bad quarterback? I'm not going to argue with you. I just think he still has.
I don't think you're outlandish for saying like, oh yeah, I'd roster him at the end of my bench because realistically, the RB9 on my roster versus the quarterback 5, like there's more implied upside if the quarterback 5 got any. I get that aspect, but also it's like you have to galaxy brain them gaining value.
Oh, of course. But you and I play in deep dynasty leagues with like 30 bench spots. So guys like Zach Wilson that can turn into something. Like, anybody think that their Jordan Mason shares that were the 27th round startup pick were going to have any value this year? No. Nobody thought that. And you had like a usable RB1 for fucking 10 games.
Remember when people were paying once for him?
What's up?
Remember when people were paying once for Jordan Mason for like a 3-week stretch?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's insane. People were paying first round picks for Jordan Mason. And so Timothy says like he feels similar to Carson Wentz, never a good leader in a locker room. I mean, were any of you guys 21, 22 years old once? Like, I don't know. But part of me is like, the thing that I've seen with Baker is just a vast maturity level change from his time in Cleveland versus now. So it's possible that Zach Wilson had to eat his humble pie as a third string quarterback in Denver, as a backup quarterback in Miami, and he kind of comes at it with a different frame of mind, and he becomes a better leader as a result. Again, I'm done talking about Zach Wilson. Jalen Milroe by a country mile, by the way. I would rather take a swing on Jalen Milroe.
I still will never forget the Zach Wilson bangs MILFs drama. That was quite
it was great
storyline from a couple years ago, though.
It was great. I ended up with the 102 for Mason. That's insane. You taking Minshew over Zach? I would rather take the shot on Zach Wilson than Gardner Minshew. I think I've seen enough of Gardner Minshew to know what he is.
Dude, is he even going to be in the NFL next year?
Yeah, he'll probably be a backup somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
like I wouldn't be shocked if like the Vikings, now that they don't have Darnold or Daniel Jones, just sign Minshew in case JJ is not healthy or something like that.
I'd much rather just get a Brissett if I'm them.
Yeah, well, it's the same type of tier of quarterback. Anyways, other moves that we didn't talk about. I kind of teased it, but Texans dealing Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders.
And then also dealing Kenyon Green to the Eagles.
And people were like, oh, Kenyon Green's garbage. And I'm like, well, yeah, probably on the Texans offensive line, he's garbage. But is he going to be garbage playing next to Jordan Mailata and fucking
Cam Jurgens?
Cam Jurgens on the Eagles offensive line. I mean, Mekhi Becton looked good in that role. So
that's what I mean. First of all, where does Becton go at this point? Because
he's going to sign somewhere and he's probably going to get good money.
Yeah. And second, I mean, if Jeff Stoutland says he wants an offensive lineman, I don't care how that guy is viewed across the league. If Jeff Stoutland wants him, I trust him. Like literally fucking Brock. Jeff Stoutland will fix it. Jeff Stoutland is the best offensive line coach of all of our lives. Quite
it pays. Here's the thing, guy. It pays to just be a good coach and have a well-coached team, because you can take other people's garbage and turn it into functional players. And
Becton was a legit starting guard this year, and he was viewed as a cast-off.
A bust, a complete garbage bust. Like
Kenyon Green was a former top 15 pick.
Yeah, I've seen it with my own team too. Yeah. Baker Mayfield was on Carolina and Los Angeles in the same season. Couldn't really do much. Again, we all knew he had some ability and all that kind of stuff, but we turned him into a starting quarterback, a guy who threw 40 touchdowns last year. Like, it's amazing what good coaching and a good culture can do for a team.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's hard to miss on free agent signings and draft picks when you have a good culture. It's really hard. It's very easy to miss on good draft picks and good free agent signings when your culture sucks. And like, look at the Jets right now. They're their two best players, or two of their three best players, Wilson and Sauce Gardner, are actively saying they don't want to be on the team.
Yeah,
like if you were a good franchise with a good culture, when you hit on Sauce Gardner in the draft, he's like, hell yeah, man, I want to stay here for my whole career. Like,
I'm curious.
You don't have to worry about players leaving and rebuild, and constantly the cycle of, okay, we hit on a draft pick, we got to sell them off for 2 1s now and restart. Like, then when we hit on those picks, they're going to want to leave in 3 years too.
Are there any big deals we haven't discussed yet?
No, I don't think so. I mean, what are your thoughts from the Commanders' angle of them getting Laramie Tunsil?
I mean, it's an A+ move. You basically pay a 2 and a 4, and then you move back your third rounder 20 picks to the Texans' fourth. I believe it ended up
Something
being
like that. Yeah.
like
the one thing I would say is that like Laramie Tunsil was kind of bad last year for holding penalties, especially. He like led the league or something like that.
Number one in least pressure rate allowed though.
Yeah, like I mean, he's going to protect your blind side, and I think one thing that like the parallels have been made, like Commanders are this year's Texans because they have the second overall pick who played super well, went on a kind of playoff run that no one was expecting. The difference, I think, is that the Texans were kind of like, all right, our offensive line's fine. CJ played well in his rookie year, and they didn't really look to upgrade it. Whereas I like that the Commanders are their biggest weakness being left tackle. They went out and kind of addressed that.
And I have a buddy who's a Commanders fan. He said, well, Adam Peters, when he got hired, said he wants to build through the draft. So if he's making these type of moves for Debo and for Laramie Tunsil, that should tell you about what he thinks about the draft. If he said he was going to build through it and now he's just trading for veteran players, which, I mean, to be fair, like you have Jaden on a rookie contract, go get a franchise top 5 potential caliber left tackle when he's healthy. Go get Debo Samuel, who maybe he's not the top 10 wide receiver who's viewed at one point. It's still probably a top 20 to 25 level wide receiver in the league, which if you're the Commanders and you already have Terry McLaurin, like that now all of a sudden becomes one of the better duos in the league.
I mean, even if he's a top 45 receiver in the league, paying a 5th round pick for him was probably totally fine. We got people in the chat mentioning Joe Milton for the Patriots. Josh Dobbs signed a backup quarterback deal with New England, which is causing some speculation that they might be trying to move Joe Milton. If I was the Raiders, throw him behind Geno Smith and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like that seems like a no brainer to me. Trade a 6th round pick for Joe Milton and throw him behind Geno Smith for a couple of years.
I mean, fuck, if the Giants realize, hey, we can't go up and get Cam Ward and they want to sign Aaron Rodgers and then draft the Joe Milton, I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah.
Although maybe you don't want a young quarterback around Aaron Rodgers, so you go another maybe.
How about we just no one sign Aaron Rodgers? Why does anyone want Aaron Rodgers? Would be my question.
Also, I heard so if the Giants don't get Rodgers, they would shift towards Russell Wilson. But if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Giants, do you really think the Steelers would bring back Russell Wilson? Like, I don't think that makes sense.
I think those two quarterbacks are going to those two landing spots in some order, personally.
It's so weird, man. Also,
why even bring in a guy like that? Just literally, especially for the Giants, if you're the Steelers, I think it's a little different because you don't pick really high. But if you're the Giants and you miss out on everybody, go send the farm to get up to 1. That would be my thought process.
But like if the Titans just say, nah, fuck you, like what are you going to do about it?
Or if that's the case and you absolutely can't stand Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart, take a guy on day 2 and sign a really, really cheap veteran option. Don't mess around with Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers and Will Howard, baby.
Just a waste of time. Like you're so much better off just being like, yeah, we're going to let Jacoby Brissett man the fort down until Jalen Milroe feels comfortable to start or whatever. Like you might as well do that.
Rodgers to the Pat McAfee show. Also, Connor Hellebuck shout out, live in Boston, and everyone thinks we're going to get day 2.
Absolutely zero chance they get anything more than like a 5th round pick.
They might get a 4. I mean, he showed promise in that game. Like,
if anybody gives up a 4th round pick for Joe Milton, they deserve to be fired. I'm sorry. Like he was literally like a very borderline, even draftable prospect. I know he had one good game or whatever, but like he's worth like a 6th round dart throw. I swear. That's it.
I see somebody say Jordan Lewis leaving the Cowboys gives them with a parting gift, the 2026 5th round compensatory pick. Woo!
Yeah. Anthony Nelson re-signs with the Bucs on a 2-year, $12 million deal. That was very, very expected that Tampa was going to bring him back. He's just we have 2 guys on our defensive line that are just glue guys. Will Golston, who's literally been there since 2013, always been a Buccaneer his whole career. And Anthony Nelson's the other one who we just keep giving these like 2-year, 1-year short-term contracts to because he's just a really solid like 3rd or 4th edge rusher. And now if Reddick can keep his head screwed on straight and Diaby can take a step forward, I think they're still going to address it in the draft. They drafted Braswell in the 2nd round last year. It's an interesting edge group. I think linebacker and corner need to be surely in the crosshairs for Tampa Bay in the 1st round.
Yeah, like I'm looking through it right now. By the way, Micah Parsons, Justin Fields, Jordan Love, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts are all in Dubai. random. I know.
That's weird.
Second, I saw this from Norris, and this is like when you're taking the Vikings offseason for what they could have for what they could have done. Sorry, I can't speak English, to surround JJ McCarthy. I mean, you bring back Aaron Jones, obviously older running back, but he's still going to be able to help him out of the backfield. You fill out a defense with Byron Murphy, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, but specifically you had potentially 2 offensive line starters there with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. And I know Brock is in the chat. You can speak on Fries and Kelly firsthand, right? So see what Brock says about
Wasn't Reddick. Yeah, Reddick was the player that didn't want to play last year for the extension issues. But what did I just say? You take people's garbage and you turn it into something when you're a better franchise than the Jets. I think knowing that Bowles knows Reddick, our defensive our linebackers coach, Larry Foote, worked with him in Arizona as well. Like, we have familiarity with Reddick. I think they wouldn't sign him unless they thought they could, keep his personality in check or whatever. And Reddick was a dude that literally was very, very solid the last time he played a full season before going to that, factory of sadness that the New York Jets are.
On Fries and Kelly, by the way.
Yeah, definitely good for Aaron Jones, good for JJ McCarthy, good for Caleb Johnson when they inevitably draft him 97th overall.
I mean, we could have this conversation now. Like, assuming Aaron Rodgers doesn't stop there, how high is too high to have JJ McCarthy in Dynasty?
I tend to. This is a perfect way to encapsulate what I think of the Vikings.
What's up, Nate?
I think the Vikings are going to have JJ just want to show some signs. He's still very young. He didn't really play much. They're not going to be a very good team, in my opinion. And for that reason, I don't think JJ McCarthy will just skyrocket up dynasty rankings the second he's playing games. I think he'll be like, what back half of the season Bryce Young looked like, where you're like, oh, there's some great moments here.
You said they're not going to be a very good team. I completely disagree. I think they're going to be a good team.
I think... For me,
are they going to win 12 games? Probably not, but I think they're very comfortable. Or they won 14 last year. Holy fuck.
Yeah, dude. I think they're a 7-10 win team.
I'm at more 9-12.
Yeah, I don't think they're that as good of a team. I think defensive turnover happens year over year. I don't think Flores is going to be nearly as dominant calling that defense. And I don't think they're going to run nearly as hot on the schedule they had and the close games that they won and all that kind of stuff. And McCarthy is probably going to have some growing pains and that kind of thing. So it wouldn't shock me if they're third in the NFC North next year at all with 8 wins. It wouldn't shock me. But McCarthy looks good and then people feel kind of good about the team and that kind of thing. That would be my thought on it.
Well, let me ask you this right now. Vikings win total or Packers win total?
Packers, 100%.
I'm taking the Vikings 100%.
I would take the Packers easily.
I'd take the Vikings sleep like a baby. You mentioned third. If anything, I think if anything, it's going to be the Bears that would jump them. That would be my worry.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked because we always do this when it's like, oh, it's the best division in football. They were all playoff teams or whatever. Inevitably, 2 or 3 of them fall off the face of the earth the next year. It wouldn't shock me if the Bears and Packers are the leaders of this division and the Lions take a step back and the losing all the coaching staff pieces that they lost or whatever. I think there's going to be 1 or 2 disappointing teams from this division. And I think the Vikings will be one of them just because they have a young quarterback.
I don't know, man. We do see turnover year to year, but usually it's not from the top coaches in the league. And I very comfortably would put Kevin O'Connell in the top 3 to 5 head coaches in the league.
I would say the same thing about the other coaches in the division, though.
Fair. I mean, yeah, it's a really well coached division.
Yeah, so. I mean, Ben Johnson, we don't know how he's going to be as a head coach yet, but friggin' Matt LaFleur, all he does is win 11 games in his sleep.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the NFC West at this point, I would say, is probably going to have 1 playoff team.
Yeah, it's not a very good division.
Seahawks aren't going to make it, in my opinion, now. The Niners, I don't know what to make of them at this point because their offensive line is weak. Their defense got a lot weaker throughout free agency. They don't have an interior defensive line at this point. Do they sign Joey Bosa? I think that would probably make the most sense on both sides. I don't know. And the Cardinals, they could take a step, but also it's we say that every year for the Cardinals. That
there's going to be one good team. There's going to be one good team in the NFC West, and it's going to be either the Rams or the Cardinals, in my opinion.
I would put money on the Rams.
I think it'll be the Rams, but I could see the Cardinals or the 49ers just being the one good team in that division, and everyone else is not that good.
And then, I mean, in the South, it's it's just you guys.
And Atlanta probably will be good. Maybe. Decent, at least. I think Carolina can be half decent. Carolina and Atlanta seem more frisky than actual good. They're 7 and 9 win teams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's where I'm at. I think Atlanta's going to get a lot of buzz, and I know AJ's probably in here licking his chops, ready for a nice little response.
Yeah. But anyways, there was other moves that happened. We talked Aaron Banks got signed to the Green Bay Packers. Nice upgrade for Josh Jacobs in the run game. Kenny Pickett, for some reason, got dealt for a 5th-round pick in DTR to Cleveland. We talked about that, I believe, yesterday a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the 2 IOLs to the Vikings. Panthers cut Miles Sanders. Terrible contract that he ended up getting there from Carolina. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we kind of head off of here? I saw Spicy Hot actually mentioned in the chat that I think this is a good thing to talk about here. What's the 3 best and worst offseason moves so far for fantasy purposes? So, like,
let's get a
I
recap.
assume what he's asking is like the 3 biggest risers and fallers kind of thing.
So I actually had this bookmark from yesterday because Underdog, shout out Sosa. He actually did he compiled all of the free agency moves. So we can kind of go through this from yesterday. And again, if there's any that happened today that maybe we can go through, we can take a look. But obviously Darnold, Fields, these are, I'm assuming, just the fantasy relevant guys. And then from here on, it's just going to be like the defensive guys and stuff. But specifically fantasy relevant. Darnold to the Seahawks, Fields to the Jets, Garoppolo to the Rams, Wilson, Najee, Elijah Mitchell, Samaje. And that's not even counting the trades, right? In terms of just the signings, I think Najee the Chargers obviously is the big money move for him because he could have landed in a much less ideal situation. Now he's landing with a team that, I mean, we saw Gus Edwards at points of last year legitimately be a 20 carry per game running back, and late career Gus Edwards versus 26-year-old Najee Harris. You're taking Najee Harris every single time. So I would say out of the fantasy relevant signings, obviously other than the Chris Godwin going back to the Bucs, because we both kind of expected that would be the most valuable one.
Yeah. I also just saw Mason says setup is looking good. I'm at an Airbnb in Mexico right now, and apparently people have said this now that my setup looks better than it does at my house. I would say if I had to rank my top 3, I would say Justin Fields to the Jets for Justin Fields purposes, his fantasy value. I think that's one of the biggest winners. If you have a dynasty asset, I'm just using this as like the bar for good moves. Yeah. The dynasty asset, Justin Fields, in my mind, went up a decent amount of value. Danny still looks like he's being held in a hostage room. Chris Godwin back to the Bucs. Best thing that could have happened possibly to him. Danny is just making memes while I'm trying to make comments here. Chris Godwin back to the Bucs is definitely one of my favorite fantasy moves as well. He's going to be probably a value in all formats. And then I would say, if I'm including the trades, because I kind of feel like you should include the trades here, I just kind of like the Metcalf trade for the Steelers purposes, just because I think it's straight up chaos.
Oh yeah, dude! If they sign Aaron Rodgers, that's the most toxic locker room I've ever heard of in my life. But it's Mike Tomlin, and he's always used to just calming down toxic locker rooms.
Yeah, he is. He usually is calming down toxic locker rooms.
At this point, they may as well just bring Deontay back and just have the whole fucking squad going.
Yeah, J Metal just said, thanks again, Bush, for Fields. What the hell did I give you Fields for?
What? This offseason?
This was this was the trade in Tone Setters. So context is that I won the championship, so I'm totally fine losing Justin Fields for that. I gave him Justin Fields in a first for Devontae Smith in a third.
That's fine. Whatever.
Which I won the title because of it, because Smith had a great game in week 17. So I'm totally cool with that.
Sorry. I'll just let you read that one.
I don't even know who that is. So Chuba and 310 easily. Chuba is worth way more than Pacheco is at this point in time. What do you think are the worst moves of free agency? Like who just got fucked?
Like specifically by like somebody else signing?
Like the player themselves, like where they went, or another player affected by that player getting signed there.
I mean, I talked about it on my risers and fallers that I thought if Kenneth Walker had Geno downgraded into Darnold, that would be a big loser of the cycle. And obviously, we already know the context that Geno had already gotten traded, but specifically prior to Geno getting traded and then bringing him Darnold, I do think that it is a significant downgrade for that offense going from Geno to Darnold. And I do question just how good that offensive line is going to be. Like, is there an offensive lineman at 18 that you really find that actually fits that offense? Because we know it's going to be a wide zone scheme. People might say, well, they're going to take Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker is a 4.5 RAS guard. Do you think he's going to play in a wide zone scheme?
Yeah, that's
my worry.
Yeah, that is a worry. If Najee is anywhere close to this ADP, I'll literally vomit if he's that close in ADP.
Yeah, I think he's fine, and like in Dynasty, if you can get him cheap, second round capital, I think that's reasonable.
I think he belongs like in redraft. Let's say again, they don't draft a hammer that nukes him. It's a complimentary back that they draft.
He's 6th round,
like
7th round,
7th round pick. Yeah, I'd say like that's probably where I'd feel comfortable taking him.
Where was he going
the
last
biggest
year?
loser. I mean, like this is my thought on it. Javonte was already cooked as well. Adams definitely could be one of the biggest winners as well.
Yeah. Also, I don't like. I mean, is Javonte really a loser? What was like your expectations? Was he going to
literally?
I thought, if anything, to be a backup running back somewhere, actually landing on the Cowboys is one of the better situations you could go to.
I actually would argue that Javonte's a winner because I didn't view him as anything prior to this, and now I'm like, okay, kind of sure. Dude, I saw so many memes just about brawls of like red somewhere downfield away from the play, and it's just DK Metcalf and George Pickens like beating the shit out of opposing DBs.
Yeah.
I mean, Javonte was literally a 0. So
I'm old enough to remember somebody trading for Javonte.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember trading away Javonte to that someone. Would have been nice if I didn't send away Amari Cooper shortly after in a massive deal that included Bucky Irving, Kareem Hunt, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. But
did you bump Saquon's value on his contract to his RB3, him or Genty? Well, I mean, Genty's RB1, so
I have Genty RB3 at the moment until I see where he goes. But
it's fine. Regardless, so I think the top 3 are a tier above.
If he's a Raider, a Cowboy, or a Bear, he's RB1.
Yeah.
With that draft capital. But anyways, we should probably head off of here, Danny, if you don't mind, just because I got to get going and doing some chores and shit. But
I mean, hell, this is, you guys enjoyed it. We get to talk through NFL free agency. I mean, we should just do more of these streams.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. First domino to lose the league. Had to get toxic Amari off my team. Yeah, he literally knew.
I forgot about that part too.
Yeah, I did forget about that part as well. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed the stream, like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back some point this week. Probably won't do another one of these tomorrow. I can't imagine there's gonna be many more moves that happen that are relevant. But if we have any other news, then we'll definitely break that down for you. We'll have some other videos throughout the week. And as I mentioned, we have 4 more days until the listener league drawing. If you guys do want to get into that listener league, link in the description of this live stream. If it's not there right now, I will put it in shortly after. And you can fill out the form there. If you're a free entry, you can fill out and get 1 ballot for a chance to be in that listener league. You get multiple ballots if you are a site subscriber as well. So definitely check out Flock Fantasy. We'll have version 2 of the draft guide out at the beginning of April with all the stuff updated, more 30 plus guys added to it, and also a ton of other prospect model stuff and official heights and weights and stuff. So yeah, hit the like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.